if you know this, ladies and gentlemen, but the Senate passed a bill the other day, working at all hours of the night, working diligently to get it done. They were working so hard. What were they doing? Getting money for the homeless people in America? No. Getting money for the workers. Going to help subsidize their bills? Nah. How about sending out checks to family members and whatnot that have been affected for the last several years? No. How about putting together a real infrastructure program? Back to work, building our roads, our highways, and fixing our bridges? Nah. Okay, let's be selfish. What about for the Republicans? What about giving them money for their number one issue, the border? Not even close. Remember what I said at the beginning of the show, ladies and gentlemen, I always want to go and answer some questions when I do a segment. I want to have a thesis out there. Well, the answer to the questions out there, are the Republicans at least have some sympathy for some wars? No. They're all warmongers. All of them. Most of them. I mean, some of them will vote against certain wars like the Ukraine war because it's Biden's war and they can blame it on there. But really, it's all about the fiscal spending that they don't like. In other words, they're really upset that you don't spend money on the border, but you spend money funding Biden's war, the Ukraine war. So we thought that the Republicans were going to dig their feet in deep, hold their ground, and say, not a dime for a penny for Ukraine war unless you fund the border. Boy, was I wrong. Look at this. The other night, in the heat of the night, the Republicans helped some of them join all the Democrats except for two and Bernie Sanders and pass a bill that went and funded all the wars without putting money, a dime to the border. I'll say that again. Republicans crossed the picket line instead of digging their heels in right now and saying, we're not going to give a dime to the war unless they spend money on the border. They broke with protocol. They didn't come together, and they funded war. $60 billion to Ukraine, $14 billion to Israel, $9.1 billion to Gaza, $8 billion to Taiwan, and $0 to Americans. Not even for the Republicans out there that want to spend money on the border. Now, don't get me wrong. This is going to be a little Fox News clip. We're going to have Jayme bring it up in just a second. But it just blows my mind, the fact that they wouldn't even come together and make sure that no money went to the Ukraine war. And I've said this from the get-go. I said eventually the Republicans will cave. But the only thing that will make them cave funding the Ukraine war, and they're trying to hold that piggy bank up and jostle that last coin, the only thing that would make them fold would be the fact that you would spend money on the border. And that would make them break. They would say, we got to fund this stupid war, but at least we get money for the border. Boy, was I wrong. Take a look at this. This is from Fox News.
Before we went to that news conference in Kansas City, we were talking about the funding for Ukraine and Israel, Taiwan that's being battled about and bantied about on Capitol Hill. Tonight, again, we learned what some of that money would buy and what that process is. Here again is Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin.
The National Security Supplemental includes more than just Ukraine military aid. It focuses on missile defense to protect Israeli cities. $4 billion for the Iron Dome and David Sling, $1.2 billion for the Iron Beam laser system to counter short-range rocket threats, something the U.S. could also use to protect U.S. troops at bases across the Middle East, and $2.4 billion for U.S. Central Command to resupply missiles fired by the U.S. Navy to stop Iranian proxies. Then there's $1.9 billion for DoD to backfill weapons it already sent to Taiwan from U.S. stockpiles. The $60 billion for Ukraine includes $48.4 billion for weapons, $19.9 billion for the Pentagon to backfill weapons already sent to Ukraine from U.S. stockpiles, in essence, buying new weapons for the U.S. military. Defense Secretary Austin tried to reassure the Ukraine Contact Group, 50 allies meeting in Brussels today, that U.S. support for Ukraine, the front lines against an expansionist Russia, would continue.
Ukraine will not surrender, and neither will we.
A study by the conservative-leaning American Enterprise Institute shows that 90% of the $68 billion the U.S. has already sent to Ukraine supports weapons factories and jobs in the U.S. Abrams tanks made in Lima, Ohio, Javelin anti-tank missiles built in Troy, Alabama, and Tucson, Arizona, howitzers built in Minneapolis, Switchblade drones made in Forest, Mississippi, and York, Pennsylvania, and more.
The supplemental refills depleted U.S. stockpiles, modernizes those stockpiles, and helps the U.S. economy while ensuring the U.S. is prepared for future conflicts. Brett?
Jennifer Griffin, live at the Pentagon. Jennifer, thank you.
So I had to just point that out right there at the very end, that they love to give you that selling point. Well, listen, this is about jabs, right? This is about getting money for weapons that are made in America, right? We don't have any principles here. We don't have no compassion whatsoever. Who cares how many bombs American bombs kill? They create money for workers here in America. Trying to sell that point, it's crazy. Now, I noticed some cadets looking down on my phone to try to see what people are saying. I know a lot of people are pointing out at the end of the day, the donors are going to win. They're going to always win and get their money when it comes to war. I think the way they did sell this was that they amped up some of the weaponry for Israel. You know, lasers to shoot stuff down, more funding for the Iron Dome. All that stuff could be the tipping point. Now, the funny thing is, though, is that the Senate's passed this. Like 2 Democratic senators said no. Bernie Sanders, the independent, said no. And we're going to show you at the end of this segment, people, some of the Republicans, even some of your most hardened war hawks said no to this bill. It's crazy. So, but one thing we've been told and we heard, and you know what I'm saying, is that it's dead on arrival when it gets to the House. Take a look at Mike Johnson, the House member, talking about if it gets here, it ain't going to do anything anyways. So why'd you send it to me?
Regarding the border, you know, talk about the American people not being listened to. They are crying out to the Biden administration to secure the border. This is not a Republican issue. It's an issue for every single person, and everybody knows it. We know the stories of children being poisoned by fentanyl and cities being overwhelmed by migrant surges. We know House Republicans have shown that we are listening to and holding the administration accountable for this catastrophe. We're listening to the people. We're taking action to hold Biden accountable. Last night, the House voted to approve articles of impeachment against Secretary Mayorkas. Desperate times call for desperate measures. We had to do that. He has abdicated his responsibility, he's breached the public trust, and he's disregarded the laws Congress has passed. But much more has to be done, of course, to secure the border. And what the Senate produced this week is silent on that issue. Senator McConnell and I have spoken about this in frank sessions, and let me be clear here again this morning. The Republican-led House will not be jammed or forced into passing a foreign aid bill that was opposed by most Republican senators and does nothing to secure our own border. It's time for Washington to start showing some love to Americans. Valentine's Day, this is a good day to point this out. We need to listen to the American people and their needs and take action. And that's why House leadership will continue to govern with Americans' interests at heart. With that, I'll take.
It's so crazy the way that they play ping pong, isn't it? Right? They're talking about the fact that they impeach Mayorkas, right? Oh, we impeach Mayorkas for his sins at the border right now. DHS, right? Department of Homeland Security, Secretary, impeach now. But they know if they send it over to the Senate, it's dead on arrival over there. They just did this symbolically. And the same thing that's happening over in the Senate right now, knowing that they're going to send a bill that doesn't fund the border, that they're going to send it on over to the House and let them try to pass it when the Speaker of the House says he's not going to bring it to the floor. It's just ridiculous. All these things they do symbolically, going back and forth playing ping pong. But wait a second. Remember forced to vote? Yes, Democrats are on board. We heard that Hakeem Jeffries, leader of the House for the Democrats, and Nancy Pelosi are now going to finally do what we wanted to do. They're going to force the vote. Are they going to force the vote for Medicare for all? No. They're going to force the vote to get this particular bill on the floor. Here is Nancy Pelosi finally forcing the vote. Mind-blowing, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at this here.
The Speaker Johnson has said he will not bring it up.
Our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, said that he has not ruled out using a discharge petition, which is a parliamentary maneuver to try to bring a bill to the floor, and also to just see where all of the Republicans are on this, because we've had over 300 votes for assistance to Ukraine, but strong bipartisan support for that in the Congress. So this isn't a partisan issue in most respects, but it is. You saw the other day they brought up 2 bills they didn't have the votes for.
What do you think of Speaker Johnson?
I mean, come on. I mean, literally, just not caring. They're gonna force a vote to get money for war, not force a vote for Medicare for all or anything else the Americans need, but force a vote for more money for war, for the Ukraine war that has also already squandered billions of dollars, line their pockets with their money-making scheme over here, their money laundering scheme. And like I said, they're trying to jostle that coin out there. What's really scary, though, is that when you have to rely on people like Matt Gaetz, when Matt Gaetz is the voice of reason, you're in trouble. Here's Matt Gaetz talking about what the speaker should do. And let's not forget, he had the last speaker removed because he didn't do a single item line voting. And he also wanted to keep funding this Ukraine war over here. Just disastrous. Take a listen.
Speaking of fools, we get a report from the Calvin Coolidge Project that Republican Senator and neoconservative Mark Wayne Mullen is meeting with folks to consider a discharge petition. And here's the report. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen has spoken to House lawmakers about a discharge petition. A discharge petition would bring the $95 billion overseas aid bill to a vote in the House of Representatives if Speaker Mike Johnson doesn't introduce it. So here is the real-time fisticuffs of this. You've got Mike Johnson taking the right position that we're not going to consider this crazy bill on the terms that the Senate has sent it over. And then you have Mark Wayne Mullen trying to encourage Republicans to go sign a discharge petition with Democrats to force this America Last bill forward. And Mark Wayne Mullen didn't even have the guts to vote for it. That's what's crazy about this. Mullen votes against the bill because he's afraid that his constituents in Oklahoma will know how he actually feels about these questions. And then he goes and tries to get some Republicans in the House to do an end run around Mike Johnson. I will fight against that. I will stand with Speaker Johnson to stop this terrible unpaid for $95 billion aid bill. And I'm glad the Speaker is staying strong on that. Thanks so much for watching this video. So make sure you're subscribed to our channel.
We don't have to hear any more from Matt Gaetz. Appreciate it, Mac. We know you got a big following and people are watching you, and that's awesome. So that's great. But let's bring up the next part. I didn't put it in the doc, Jamie. The actual vote.gov went and looked and who voted for this bill. I was curious, and some of the names that I thought would be on the yay side stayed on the nay side. You know what I'm saying? And here it is. Here's a summary of the bill. If you go down real quickly, it will tell you who voted for it. I was about to look behind me over there. But there are people that voted for this. Keep scrolling down, the yays and the nays, and you'll see them. All right, so those are the yays, right? And I expected to see Tom Cotton there, Lindsey Graham there, Josh Hawley there. No, they voted nay on this bill. I mean, I can't make sense of this, ladies and gentlemen. It's mind-boggling right now. The fact that you had certain people that always are pro-war vote nay on the bill and everybody else vote yay on it. I would have bet a lot of money that you would have saw Cotton on it. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some names on the nays that I thought would be there. Rand Paul, you know what I'm saying? Surprising, Bernie Sanders finally stepped up over here. I don't know what got to Bernie. Senator Merkley got to it. But it's just mind-blowing to see some of the people here that voted for and against this bill. Maybe the Lindsey Grahams and the Tom Cottons and the Josh Hawleys are saying, you know what? We're not going to budge on this. We're not going to give you this vote until you fund that border wall. Maybe it's that. I don't know. And that's why I'm excited to have our guest come on in about 5 minutes to talk about this. Jayme, can you make any sense of this? You want to jump in really quick? You can take that and jump in yourself. Can you make any sense of this bill over here right now and some of the people who voted for and against it, or are you just kind of shaking your head the way I am?
No, I can't. It's because this is not a bipartisan. This is a bipartisan bill, right? Because it was worked on by Schumer and McConnell together, right?
Well, that was the first one that actually funded the border wall. I don't know if the two guys behind this one as well. On that last thing, does it say who was the author of the bill and the co-author and sponsor and the co-sponsor?
Let me see if I can find that.
Does it say that at the top too? Because it's very interesting if we try to figure out who. I mean, of course, all the Democrats voted for it. Elizabeth Warren voted for it. That's what Friendly Brilliant said. But how you doing today? Lindsey Graham voting nay is crazy. A lot of stuff. And I also love for pizza keep talking about a UBI. Oh, UBIs are no good. No good. I used to think so myself.
This doesn't have
No
the
good.
sponsors on it, unfortunately. I
It
don't
doesn't
see
have
it.
the sponsors on it.
Mm-mm.
It's just a little funny right now, but it's not surprising to me that a lot of the senators don't give a damn about what's going on with our country. They don't care about funding, homeless, funding, home shelters or anything like that, or getting money to veterans and fixing that system, or really fixing our infrastructure. Before Jayme, they got all the dollars and cents in the world. It's mind blowing. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see what they care about, look at what they're willing to fund. And they're not. They don't care about the United States. They don't care about the Americans because they're not willing to fund us to do anything for us.
No.
All they care about is war, and it's both sides. But at least we got some Republicans who are actually willing to stand up. I mean, I never thought I would see the Republicans be the ones that are
a small group of the populace
trying to
right, but let
hold
me
it up.
tell you something. They showed their true colors when the Gaza situation happened because they were all for that as well. And they are all for that. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, everybody
surprised the standalone bill in Israel didn't pass the House because I thought the Republicans would all jump on that and you'd have just a few group of Democrats that wouldn't do it. And let's be honest, the Democrats are doing that right now. The ones who are opposing the genocide or the ethnic cleansing or whatever you want to call it in Gaza are the ones who are provided political cover because they know they can vote for it and it's not going to pass as far as the ceasefire is concerned. So they know what they're doing. They got political cover and they're taking advantage of it. The Democrats have political cover and that's why they're doing what they're doing. At the end of the day, did they stop funding the Iron Dome and whatnot? No. Nancy Pelosi went and straightened out AOC and she got her mind right and then voted for it.
I mean, we're given $3 billion a year. That's just not enough for them to do what they're doing.
$3 billion isn't even scratched the surface.